Close your eyes for a second and imagine a quiet sound. Not traffic. Not voices. Just wind moving through leaves. Now imagine that sound stopping again and again. Every second. Almost 20 trees. One after another. While you breathe. While you listen. While you think about something else. This is not happening far away in time. It is happening now. And the strange thing is that most of us do not feel it. We know deforestation is bad. We have heard the words many times. But numbers slide past us. Images blur together. The forest becomes an idea instead of a place. That distance is part of the problem. Because when destruction feels abstract, responsibility feels abstract too. The context matters here. There is one country whose name comes from a tree. A country covered by forest for centuries. And today most of its climate pollution does not come from smokestacks or engines. It comes from land. From what is cut. From what is burned. From what is turned into something else. When forests disappear, carbon that was held quietly for decades is released. The land heats. The rain patterns change. The cooling system weakens. This is not poetry. It is physics. But physics alone does not move people. Understanding does. The first insight is the surface concept. Seeing is not the same as knowing. Satellites can show us images of green turning into brown. Pink spreading across the map. Blue lakes appearing where trees once stood. But without context, these are just colors. A before and after picture can shock for a moment, but it does not tell a story. What happened there? Who did it? When did it happen? Was it legal? Was it repeated? Was it part of a pattern? Without answers, action stalls. People argue. Deny. Delay. This is why many environmental crimes continue. Not because they are invisible, but because they are blurry. Blurry truth is easy to ignore. The second insight sits underneath. We assume that data alone changes behavior. That if we show the damage, people will stop. But damage has been visible for decades. What was missing was accountability. Not in a moral sense, but in a practical sense. When a system cannot clearly say this land changed here on this date under this owner without permission, rules become suggestions. When consequences are slow or uncertain, destruction feels cheap. But when evidence is clear, specific, and timely, behavior changes. Think of everyday life. A speed limit sign alone does little. A camera that sends you a photo of your car does a lot. Not because you suddenly respect the rule, but because denial disappears. You cannot argue with a clear record. The same logic applies to forests. The third insight is the structural pattern. For a long time, making detailed maps for a whole country took years. By the time the map was ready, the land had already changed again. Cost and slowness protected destruction. But when mapping becomes fast, detailed, and open, power shifts. Every pixel becomes a witness. Every year becomes a chapter in a visible story. When you can trace a single piece of land across decades and see it move from forest to pasture to crops, excuses shrink. Patterns appear. Repeat offenders appear. Hotspots appear. And suddenly enforcement is no longer blind. It is targeted. Efficient. Scalable. This is not about surveillance for its own sake. It is about clarity. Clarity allows laws to matter. This leads to a reframing. Maps are not just tools for navigation. They are tools for justice. When land use history is public, banks change behavior. Governments change behavior. Companies change behavior. Money stops flowing to places that destroy illegally. It moves toward places that comply. This is a quiet form of power. No speeches. No slogans. Just consequences. And when many small consequences add up, large outcomes change. Deforestation slows. Emissions drop. Space opens for recovery. This is not magic. It is alignment. Information aligned with action. Action aligned with incentives. The application to daily life may seem distant, but it is closer than it appears. Every system you interact with works better when actions leave a trace. Receipts. Records. History. Think about how different life would be if rules only existed on paper with no way to check them. The same is true for the environment. When land use becomes traceable, choices become visible. Visibility creates responsibility. Responsibility creates change. Beyond forests, this way of seeing supports health, water, disease prevention, indigenous rights. When land changes are known, responses become faster. When illegal activity is mapped, protection becomes possible. Even something as hidden as illegal mining can be disrupted when supply routes are visible. Closing an airstrip can change behavior more effectively than chasing individuals through the forest. This is systems thinking made practical. Optional deepening helps us sit with the emotional side. There is grief in these maps. They show loss. They show scars. They show how much is already gone. But there is also hope. Because for the first time, the story of the land is not only told by those who exploit it. It is told by data that anyone can see. Local communities can point and say this happened here. Governments can no longer claim ignorance. Investors can no longer claim they did not know. And citizens can understand that protection is not abstract. It is specific. It happens place by place. Year by year. Pixel by pixel. Collaboration matters here. No single group can watch the whole forest. But networks can. Shared tools. Shared standards. Shared goals. When local people produce local maps, power stays closer to the ground. When countries share methods, protection scales. This is how silence can be replaced. The sound of chainsaws does not disappear overnight. But it can be challenged by something quieter and stronger. Evidence. And evidence can travel faster than destruction if we choose to use it. So as you think about forests you may never visit and data you may never touch, you might ask yourself how different would our world be if every place that was being harmed could speak clearly and be heard in time?